Hey guys, tonight we are standing at the edge of a long Roman day, right as the sun droops low and the public baths begin their slow, ceremonial closing ritual. You're there already, sandals dusty from the street, skin still carrying the heat of afternoon as the sky softens into purples and tired golds above tiled rooftops. The air smells faintly of oil, wet stone, and that ever-present Roman aroma of humanity packed too closely together. Somewhere behind you, a vendor is folding up his stall. Somewhere ahead, a bath attendant clears his throat in a way that means, politely, you've overstayed your welcome. And yes, you probably won't survive this, not the baths, but the sheer social exhaustion of being naked with half the city every single day. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're settling in, drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what your local time is right now. Are you drifting off at 11 p.m. in London, or pretending to work while it's 3 a.m. somewhere else? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing just outside the entrance of the baths as twilight thickens. This is the hour Romans know well, the in-between moment when business ends and routine takes over. Public baths, thermae if you want to sound impressive, are not just about getting clean. They are gyms, gossip hubs, libraries, snack bars, and social networks rolled into one echoing stone complex. A mainstream historical fact you'd already know, or at least pretend to know at dinner parties, is that most Roman cities had at least one public bath, and Rome itself had dozens, some of them enormous enough to swallow entire neighborhoods. Entry fees are cheap, sometimes even free, because emperors love nothing more than sponsoring cleanliness and being remembered for it. But right now, none of that matters. Closing time is approaching, and the baths feel different. Louder sounds soften, splashes turn to lazy ripples. The hard edge of daytime chatter melts into murmurs that slide along the marble walls. You step inside, and the heat wraps around you like a familiar cloak. The architecture does half the work. Vaulted ceilings trap warmth, while high windows sip the last daylight. Historians still argue whether Romans consciously designed bath acoustics for calm, or if the echoing serenity is just a happy accident of stone and scale. Either way, your shoulders drop without asking permission. You notice the light first. Oil lamps are being prepared along the walls, their bronze bodies waiting patiently. In daylight, they're background clutter. At dusk, they become stars. An attendant moves with practiced boredom, checking wicks, topping off oil. This is olive oil, of course, the same substance you'll soon be rubbing all over yourself like a human salad. A quirky tidbit most people miss is that Romans don't really use soap the way you imagine. Instead, they oil up and scrape the grime away with a curved metal tool called a strigil. Effective? Apparently. Pleasant? Debatable. Economical? Only if you don't mind smelling faintly like last year's harvest. Around you, the crowd is thinning. The caldarium, the hot room, is still occupied because no one ever wants to leave that last pocket of heat. You pass doorways where steam sighs outward, as if the building itself is tired. Men and women use baths at different times or in separate sections, depending on the era and the specific complex. And historians still argue whether mixed bathing was more common than polite sources admit. Right now, though, everyone shares the same unspoken goal: stay just a little longer without being scolded. You hear the sound of slippers, wooden soles, sometimes with leather straps, clacking softly against wet floors. These aren't fashion statements, they're survival gear. Marble gets slick, and slipping in a bathhouse is a fast track to becoming the evening's entertainment. A fringe detail that survives in graffiti and jokes is that Romans complain endlessly about stolen sandals. Thieves love bathhouses. You leave your clothes unattended, after all, and trust in the vague hope that social norms will protect your tunic. Spoiler, they won't. As you drift deeper inside, you catch fragments of conversation. Politics, always politics. a baker complaining about grain prices, someone bragging about a chariot race they definitely did not attend. The baths at this hour are quieter but more intimate. Without the midday crowds, voices travel farther and secrets stick to the walls. You step for a moment on a warm stone bench, letting the heat soak upward. Your skin prickles, your breathing slows. There's a rhythm to closing time. Attendants don't rush, they herd. A cough here, a meaningful glance there. A subtle stacking of towels that says, "We would like to go home." These attendants are often enslaved or lower status workers, and one mainstream fact is that baths rely on an enormous hidden workforce to function. Stokers feeding furnaces, cleaners draining pools, lamplighters chasing shadows. A quirky tidbit whispered in some sources suggests that certain attendants develop personal grudges against specific regulars, timing their reminders just to ruin someone's favorite soak. Petty? Yes. Human? Absolutely. The walls themselves tell stories. Mosaic floors depict athletes, sea creatures, gods who look suspiciously bored. As the light fades, details blur, and figures seem to move when lamps flicker on. You blink, and Neptune's trident almost winks at you. This is where the sleepy magic creeps in. Your mind drifts, untethered from sharp outlines. Historians still argue whether Romans experienced these spaces as calming sanctuaries or stimulating social arenas. But standing here now, it's hard to imagine stress surviving this warmth. You rise slowly, joints loose, and make your way towards the next room, aware that the evening is only beginning. Behind you, the baths sigh again, a low sound of water settling and people reluctantly obeying time. Ahead, lamps will glow brighter, routines will repeat, and the city outside will wait patiently for you to step back into it. For now, you linger, balanced between day and night, letting Rome slow you down one breath at a time.
You ease forward into the caldarium, the hottest room, where the evening's final holdouts cling to warmth like cats, refusing to leave a sunlit step. The steam is thinner now, no longer the aggressive midday fog that smacks you in the face, but a gentle haze that softens edges and forgives wrinkles. The ceiling curves overhead, beaded with moisture, and every sound arrives padded and polite. Your feet sink into heat stored deep in the stone, warmth rising steadily as if the floor itself is breathing. This room is heated by a hypocaust system, one of those mainstream Roman engineering facts everyone loves to mention. Beneath your feet, a maze of hollow spaces allows hot air from furnaces to circulate, warming floors and walls. It's underfloor heating, 2,000 years early, and it works so well that you briefly wonder why modern apartments still haven't figured this out properly. Historians still argue whether the Romans fully understood the health benefits of this consistent heat, or simply enjoyed the luxurious side effect of clever engineering. Either way, your muscles loosen without protest. Only a few bathers remain. One older man stretches slowly, joints popping like distant embers. A younger one lounges theatrically, pretending he's not watching to see who leaves first. Nobody wants to be the last person ordered out, but nobody wants to go home either. The social rules are delicate. Linger too long and you're rude. Leave too early and you've wasted good heat. You settle against the wall, letting your back absorb centuries of absorbed warmth. Conversation here is sparse, softer than earlier. Words melt before reaching full volume. You catch fragments, complaints about stiff knees, praise for a new olive oil supplier, a rumor about a senator's haircut that seems wildly unimportant and yet urgently whispered. A quirky tidbit buried in Roman satire suggests that some people pretended to fall asleep in the caldarium just to avoid leaving, forcing attendants into the awkward role of waking naked strangers. You consider the strategy. It's tempting. The steam smells faintly mineral, mixed with oil and the human scent of the day slowly evaporating. Romans believe sweating is purifying, a way to balance the body's humors. A mainstream belief, passed down through medical writers like Galen, insists that controlled heat keeps illness away by opening pores and encouraging bad substances to leave the body. Historians still argue whether these practices genuinely improved health or merely felt convincing enough to become tradition. Right now, the science doesn't matter, the sensation does. You close your eyes briefly, and time stretches. The caldarium at closing hour feels almost sacred. Lamps along the walls are lit one by one, their flames wavering in the moist air. Light ripples across tiled surfaces, turning droplets into tiny stars. Shadows of bodies elongate, merge, then separate again. It's oddly theatrical, like a play no one is actively watching. An attendant appears near the doorway, not speaking yet, just standing. This is the Roman equivalent of a last call bell. You sense a collective sigh ripple through the room. Someone finally rises, water cascading off his shoulders. Another follows, muttering good-natured complaints. You linger a heartbeat longer, committing the warmth to memory, knowing it will fade the moment you step out. As you stand, dizziness nips lightly at the edges. Nothing alarming, just a reminder that you are, in fact, a human being simmered like stew. Romans are aware of this risk. Writers caution against staying too long in intense heat. Historians still argue how often bath-related fainting actually occurred, but graffiti jokes imply it was common enough to be funny. You steady yourself, one hand on the wall, and shuffle toward the exit. The doorway releases you reluctantly, heat peeling away layer by layer as cooler air seeps in. Behind you, the caldarium settles, water quieting, steam thinning, lamps burning steadily for no one in particular. Ahead lies routine, oil, scraping, the gentle business of becoming clean by Roman standards. You take one last deep breath of warmth, then step onward, carrying it with you like a secret pocket of sun. You move onward, skin still flushed, into the area where routine takes over and personal rituals quietly compete. This is where oil waits. Amphora stand along the walls like obedient soldiers, their narrow necks promising slick relief. An attendant gestures with practiced efficiency, offering you a small scoop of olive oil. It's unremarkable at first glance, cloudy gold, faintly green, but this is the centerpiece of Roman cleanliness. A mainstream historical fact worth letting drift through your mind is that soap, as you know it, isn't standard here yet. Instead, oil and scraping do the work, lifting dirt, sweat, and the day itself from your skin. You drizzle the oil across your arms and chest, spreading it slowly. The sensation is oddly comforting, a warm glide that replaces the sticky residue of sweat. Around you, others perform the same movements, each with slight variations. Some are methodical, almost ceremonial. Others rush, eager to finish before the attendant's patience runs out. Historians still argue whether Romans saw this routine as hygienic necessity or as a kind of daily meditation. Watching the unhurried motions, it's easy to believe it's both. Then comes the strigil, curved, metal, unapologetically cold at first touch. You draw it along your skin, and the oil rolls away in soft ribbons, carrying grime with it. The sound is faint but distinct, a gentle scrape, rhythmic and repetitive. A quirky tidbit buried in less polite sources suggests that the leftover mixture of oil, sweat, and dirt, called gloios, was sometimes collected and sold, allegedly for medicinal or cosmetic use. You pause, briefly horrified, then remind yourself not to think too hard about ancient skincare trends. The room smells richer here. Olive oil, warm bodies, damp stone. Lamps burn brighter now, their light steadier, chasing shadows into corners. Reflections ripple across polished surfaces, and you catch your own distorted shape in bronze fixtures, looking both ancient and oddly familiar. This space hums softly, not with voices, but with small sounds, the scrape of strigils, the drip of water, the shuffle of feet.
You overhear a debate nearby, quiet but earnest. Someone insists that a particular oil blend prevents muscle pain. Another swears by adding herbs, though he can't name which ones. Roman medical writers argue endlessly about such things, and historians still argue whether these bathhouse remedies had real effects or merely felt convincing enough to become tradition. Right now, the science doesn't matter. The sensation does. An attendant passes again, gathering used strigils, giving a pointed look to anyone lingering too long. These workers know the rhythms better than anyone. They can tell who will need reminding and who will leave on their own. A fringe anecdote suggests some attendants develop favorite regulars, offering them warmer oil or a moment's grace at closing time. Others, less fortunate, get the cold stare and the unmistakable sigh of someone who wants to lock the doors. You finish scraping and rinse lightly, letting water trickle away the last traces of oil. Your skin feels smooth, almost unreal, as if you've shed a layer of yourself along with the day. There's a subtle calm that settles in, a quiet satisfaction that comes from following a routine perfected by repetition. No rush, no urgency, just the next step. As you dry off, the warmth from earlier still clings, though thinner now, like an echo. You flex your fingers, your shoulders, noticing how loose everything feels. The baths are working on you, not loudly, but persistently. You glance once more around the room, lamps glowing, routines repeating, knowing that outside, night has fully claimed the streets. Soon you'll step back into it. For now, you linger in this soft in-between, oiled and calm, ready to slide gently into the next quiet phase of the evening.
You slip your feet into wooden slippers, the soles slightly curved and worn smooth by countless evenings just like this one. They lift you a precious inch above the slick mosaic floors, a small mercy that keeps dignity and bones intact. The sound they make is unmistakable, a gentle clack, clack, clack that echoes softly through the cooling halls. It's a sound Romans associate with leaving, with transition, with the bathhouse slowly exhaling its last visitors. The mosaics beneath your feet come alive in the lamplight. Dolphins twist mid-leap, athletes freeze forever in motion. Geometric patterns ripple as if the stone itself is breathing. A mainstream historical fact that floats comfortably here is that bathhouse mosaics often served a practical purpose as well as a decorative one. Their textured surfaces provided traction where polished marble would be dangerously slick. Historians still argue whether certain designs were chosen specifically for safety or if aesthetics simply won out and the grip was a fortunate side effect. You walk carefully, body relaxed but alert. One careless step and the evening turns into an embarrassing story told at tomorrow's bath. Around you, others move with similar care, sandals tapping in uneven rhythms. Some shuffle, tired, others stride confidently, showing off the casual balance of a seasoned bather. A quirky tidbit preserved in Roman jokes suggests that slipping in the baths was so common it became a stop comedy moment, complete with exaggerated groans and helpful onlookers pretending not to laugh. The air here is cooler, fresher, and you feel it immediately on your skin. Goosebumps rise, a quiet reminder that night has taken over outside. Lamps along the walls cast overlapping pools of light, leaving darker bands between them. Your shadow stretches long and thin across the floor, bending over mosaics and disappearing into corners. For a moment, it looks like you're walking alongside a second, quieter version of yourself. You pass through a corridor where voices linger, softer now, tinged with fatigue. The social energy of the baths has wound down. No one is here to impress anyone anymore. There's a shared understanding that the performance is over. Historians still argue whether this nightly unwinding had a measurable effect on Roman social cohesion, but standing here, it feels like a collective sigh made visible. A small shrine sits tucked into an alcove, nothing grand, just a niche with a lamp and a modest figure of a household god. Bathers pause briefly, some touching fingers to lips, others nodding almost unconsciously. A fringe belief holds that certain bathhouse spirits watched over slippery floors in hot rooms, protecting regulars who showed respect. You're not sure if you believe it, but you slow your step anyway. It can't hurt. As you move farther from the heat, the smells change. Steam gives way to stone. Oil fades into something cooler and cleaner. The echo of your slippers grows sharper, more defined. You're leaving the cocoon of warmth behind, and part of you resists, even as another part enjoys the clarity that comes with cooler air. Ahead, the changing area waits, quieter than before, holding the last traces of the day's chaos. You glance back once, watching lamplight shimmer across the mosaics, listening to the soft percussion of sandals and footsteps. The baths are closing, but not abruptly. They're easing you out, step by step, letting the calm follow you like a well-trained shadow.
You pass through the threshold where the baths officially end and the quiet work of closing begins. The doors are still open, but only just, held wide enough for stragglers like you who linger a second longer than necessary. Behind you, attendants move with renewed purpose now that most eyes are gone. This is their moment. Voices drop, postures change, and the bathhouse reveals its backstage self. A mainstream historical fact slides naturally into place here. Public baths close daily not just for rest, but for cleaning, draining pools, and resetting the complex. The water you soaked in doesn't simply sit overnight. Floors are scrubbed, basins emptied, furnaces adjusted. It's an enormous operation, repeated almost every evening, and largely invisible to those who arrive fresh and early the next day. Historians still argue whether Romans fully appreciated the labor behind this routine, or simply took the miracle of warm water for granted. You slow your pace, pretending to check your sandals, giving yourself an excuse to observe. An attendant gathers towels into a neat stack, counting under his breath. Another tests a door, then slides a wooden bar into place with a dull, final thud. The sound echoes briefly, then fades. It's oddly satisfying, like punctuation at the end of a long sentence. Near the pools, cleaners work methodically. Water is redirected, channels opened, leaving behind the soft gurgle of drains doing their quiet duty. A quirky tidbit tucked in less formal writings suggests that some bath workers named the furnaces and tools they use daily, treating them like stubborn co-workers. You can almost imagine a muttered complaint aimed at a particularly smoky fire or a drain that never clears on the first try. The lamps change, too. Those meant to guide bathers are dimmed or extinguished, replaced by fewer, brighter ones that illuminate work areas. Shadows sharpen. The mood shifts from social to practical. You feel slightly intrusive, like someone lingering in a cafe after chairs have been flipped onto tables. An attendant catches your eye, not annoyed, just tired, and gestures gently toward the exit. Message received. As you move closer to the door, cooler air leaks in from outside, brushing your ankles. The warmth you've been carrying finally begins to thin. You notice how the baths sound different now, less echo, more hollow space. Without bodies and voices, the architecture speaks louder. Every footstep rings, every clink of metal seems amplified. There's a moment just before you leave when you glance back and see the baths stripped of their daytime identity. No laughter, no splashing, just stone, water, and people doing necessary work. Historians still argue whether bathhouses felt empty or alive after hours, but standing here, it feels like watching a giant creature settle down to sleep. You step outside at last, the door easing closed behind you. Inside, locks slide into place, lamps continue their steady glow, and the baths prepare themselves for tomorrow. Outside, the night waits patiently, ready to take over where warmth and steam leave off. You breathe in, adjusting,
and begin the next, quieter phase of the evening. You pause just outside, then drift back a half step into the changing area that now feels almost abandoned. This is the after-hours hush, the moment when the room holds on to echoes like reluctant memories. Benches sit bare, their surfaces catching lamplight in long, pale streaks. A few items remain where they were forgotten, one sandal kicked beneath a bench, a folded cloth left too neatly to be trash. The space feels watchful, as if it knows it will soon be locked and left alone with its thoughts. A mainstream historical fact hums quietly in the background here. Romans rely heavily on shared spaces, and the changing room is one of the most vulnerable. Clothes are symbols of status, protection, identity. Leaving them unattended, even briefly, is a small act of trust in society. Historians still argue whether this trust was routinely broken or if fear simply loomed larger than reality. Judging by the way people check twice before leaving, anxiety seems as common as theft itself. You notice a pair of sandals tucked carefully against a wall, clearly not yours. The leather is worn, shaped to the foot of someone who's walked Rome for years. A quirky tidbit whispered through satirical poems suggests that some regulars deliberately leave cheap sandals behind, decoys meant to spare their good pair from wandering hands. Clever, if slightly paranoid. You admire the strategy, while quietly grateful you won't need it tonight. The lamps burn low now, their flames steadier without drafts from passing bodies. Shadows cling to corners, soft and unthreatening. You move slowly, almost tiptoeing, as if sound itself might disturb something fragile. The smell here is different again. Fabric, wood, a trace of oil lingering in the air like the ghost of warmth. Someone clears his throat behind you. An older bather, slower than most, finishes tying his belt. You exchange a nod, nothing more. There's an unspoken rule here. No conversation, no lingering eye contact. This is the decompression chamber of Roman life, where social roles are folded away with tunics. Historians still argue whether this quiet transition helped Romans mentally separate public and private selves, but standing here, it feels intentional, necessary even. Near the wall, a small inscription is scratched into the plaster. Names, crude drawings, a half-remembered joke. Bathhouse graffiti is common, a fringe detail that offers rare, unfiltered voices from the past. Some of it is childish, some of it philosophical. All of it says the same thing. People were here, passing time, leaving marks where they could. You trace one line with your eyes, wondering who carved it and whether they slept well that night. The attendant returns, keys in hand now, the gentle clink a clear signal. You slip on your last sandal and straighten your clothing. The warmth from earlier is almost gone, replaced by a comfortable neutrality. Your body feels heavy in the best way, ready for rest. As you step toward the exit again, the changing room fades behind you, lamps dimming, objects settling into stillness. Forgotten items wait patiently for morning. Superstitions linger like dust motes in lamplight, and you carry forward the quiet assurance that nothing urgent remains undone.
You step fully outside now, and the baths release you into the Roman night like a long-held breath finally let go. The door settles shut behind you with a thick wooden sound, not a slam, more a statement. The day is done. Warmth leaks from the walls for a moment longer, a fading halo that brushes your back before the cooler air claims you. You pause instinctively, giving your body time to adjust, because stepping straight from steam into night air is a reliable way to remind yourself you are not, in fact, immortal. The street greets you with a quieter version of Rome, not silent, never silent, but softened. Footsteps echo less sharply. Voices travel in low waves instead of crashing.
Oil lamps line the road at uneven intervals, each one casting a small private island of light. A mainstream historical fact settles in comfortably here. Rome at night is dim but not dark. Public lighting exists, though it's inconsistent, relying on wall-mounted lamps, private lanterns, and moonlight reflected off pale stone. Historians still argue how safe these streets truly were after sunset, but the calm tonight feels convincing enough. You take a few slow steps, sandals whispering against packed earth and stone. The smell of the baths still clings faintly to you, oil, warmth, clean sweat, but it's already being replaced by the cooler sense of evening. Damp stone, distant cooking fires, the vague sweetness of bread cooling somewhere nearby. Steam drifts lazily from vents high in the bathhouse walls, dissolving into the dark like tired ghosts. A few other bathers emerge and peel away in different directions, each carrying their own pocket of warmth home. There's no lingering conversation now. The social obligations have been fulfilled. This walk belongs to you. A quirky tidbit buried in Roman commentary suggests that many people deliberately timed their bath visits to end just before nightfall, believing the relaxed body slept better afterward. You test the theory by yawning almost immediately, promising results. The street opens slightly, revealing a small square where shadows pool and stretch. A stray dog noses around the edge, uninterested in you, far too experienced to be impressed by freshly bathed humans. Somewhere, a vendor packs away the last of his wares, muttering to himself with the practiced irritation of someone who has done this every night for years. You pass without comment, wrapped in that pleasant post-bath haze where everything feels slightly slower than it should. Your footsteps find a rhythm, and with it comes the gentle replay of the evening. The heat of the caldarium, the scrape of the strigil, the clack of slippers on mosaic. The mind does this naturally when the body is calm, stringing moments together like beads. Historians still argue whether Romans consciously used routine as a form of mental regulation, but walking now, unhurried, it's hard not to feel like this is exactly what the city intends. A lamp flickers overhead, and you instinctively adjust your path to stay within its glow. It's not fear so much as habit. Shadows are deeper here, more abstract. Doorways yawn open into darkness, revealing nothing but the suggestion of space beyond. You remind yourself, lightly, that most Romans go about their evenings without incident, despite what later stories imply. Still, you quicken your step just a fraction. Confidence is easier when you can see where you're going. You pass a wall where the day's heat still radiates faintly, soaking into your side as you walk. It's a last echo of the baths, carried into the street by stone that refuses to cool too quickly. A fringe belief holds that lingering near bathhouse walls at night can ward off chills and bad dreams. Completely unscientific, of course. You linger half a second longer, anyway. The sounds of the city thin as you move farther from the baths. Laughter fades. Water splashing from a nearby fountain softens into background texture. Somewhere in the distance, a cart rattles over uneven stones, its rhythm slow and predictable. Your breathing matches your steps without effort. This is the point where the day finally loosens its grip. You glance back once just to see the baths from a distance. Lamps glow through high windows like steady eyes, and steam still curls upward, barely visible now. The building looks content, settled, as if it knows it has done its work. Tomorrow it will do it all again. Tonight it rests. You turn forward again, continuing down the street, warmth fading, calm deepening. The night opens wider around you, not demanding anything, just offering space. You walk on, unhurried, carrying the baths within you like a slowly cooling ember. You walk on, farther from the baths now, and the city subtly rearranges itself around you. Streets narrow, then widen again, guiding you with a familiarity your body understands, even if your mind drifts. This is your homeward route, traced so many evenings that your feet barely need instruction. The warmth you carried out from the baths has thinned to a gentle afterglow, like a memory that hasn't quite decided to fade. A mainstream historical fact slips quietly into the rhythm of your steps. Most Romans live in dense neighborhoods, close enough that daily routines overlap and sounds travel easily from door to door. Apartment buildings, insulae, rise several stories high, their upper floors creaking softly as night settles in. Historians still argue how comfortable these living spaces truly were at this hour. With lamps glowing and voices hushed, they feel almost tender. You pass a doorway where someone has left a lamp burning low, its flame steady and patient. Inside, shadows shift as a family prepares for sleep. You don't linger. Privacy matters more after dark. A quirky tidbit preserved in Roman household lore suggests that many people believed extinguishing a lamp too abruptly invited restless dreams. Whether superstition or habit, it explains the careful way flames are coaxed down rather than snuffed outright. Your path takes you over familiar stone, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. You notice how your body feels, loose, slightly heavy, ready. The baths have done exactly what they're supposed to do. Muscles relax, thoughts slow. The mind begins sorting the day into piles marked tomorrow and no longer important. Historians still argue whether Romans consciously connected bathing with sleep hygiene, but the connection feels obvious right now. A cat darts across the street ahead of you, a brief blur of motion that disappears into shadow. You smile without thinking. The city's smaller residents are just beginning their busiest hours. Somewhere nearby, water trickles steadily from a public fountain, its sound unchanged by time of day. You pause for a sip, the coolness a sharp but welcome contrast after so much warmth. The smells of the baths are gone now, replaced entirely by night air and stone. Bread ovens have cooled, cooking fires burn lower. Even the city's usual tang of smoke feels gentler. You adjust your cloak, not because you're cold, but because the motion itself feels grounding. As you near your door, you slow instinctively. There's no rush to cross the final threshold. Inside waits sleep, or at least the attempt at it. Outside, the city hums softly, a lullaby of distant footsteps and muted voices. Historians still argue whether ancient cities ever truly slept, but standing here, it feels close enough. You turn the key, step inside, and close the door behind you with care. The day is officially finished now. What remains is quiet, warmth remembered, and the steady approach of rest. You settle inside, and the world narrows to the small, familiar circle of your room. The sounds of the street soften instantly, filtered through walls that have learned how to hold quiet. You move without turning on a lamp at first, letting your eyes adjust, guided by memory rather than sight. The warmth from the baths is almost gone now, but its echo lingers deep in your muscles, a slow-release calm that refuses to hurry away. A mainstream historical fact fits gently here. Roman evenings are simple. After bathing, most people eat lightly, talk briefly, and prepare for sleep. There's no expectation of productivity now, no pressure to stretch the day further than it wants to go. Historians still argue how much leisure time Romans truly had, but the structure of the day itself encourages this natural winding down. You feel it in the way your body accepts stillness without resistance. You sit, then lie back, adjusting fabric, finding that one position where everything feels balanced. Outside, a cart rattles once, then fades. Somewhere nearby, a lamp is dimmed with care. A quirky belief passed quietly between households claims